Hey everybody, I'm Christopher Green. You're tuning in to AMTV Alternative Media Television. It is February 13th, 2014, and a question that's been circling and really swarming the internet lately has been China and a potential currency crisis that may or may not be on the horizon that could trigger a global meltdown. This is a very good article written by Harry Wilson, put out in early February, titled Currency Crisis of Chinese Banks Could Trigger Global Meltdown, Global Collapse. Goes on to say that a rise in foreign funding at China's banks poses a threat for international lenders. But amidst all of this fear, and amidst this fear-mongering being put out by the mainstream media, something else very interesting is happening in global capital markets. Today, gold touches $1,300 an ounce for first time since November 8th. Remember, a lot of analysts have been writing gold off. They've been writing silver off, namely analysts at Goldman Sachs saying that the dollar is going to strengthen, that we're in an economic recovery, even though we know that's bullshit, and that gold's going to continue its long-term downtrodden trajectory, even though that's been the complete opposite of what gold has done over the past 4,000 years. Gold rose to a 3-month high on Thursday, briefly breaking above $1,300 after disappointing U.S. economic figures further hurt the dollar and equity markets. Of course, we had another very poor retail sales report that they're blaming on the weather because it's the weather's fault that the economy's in shambles. It's the weather's fault, according to Washington, why GDP sucks and unemployment levels are sustainably high. And that the economic trend is that we're in a depression here in the United States. It's all because of the snow. Yeah, storm wiping out power for thousands in the South. Now, although this power outage is very serious and this storm is very serious, and all those non-preppers out there that are now having to fight for food and are finding that their local grocery stores don't have any sustenance and are panicking, are starting to realize the importance of prepping, which is really just an insurance policy against the inevitable, because of course the government cannot and will not save you. And of course they know that the system is coming to an abrupt end very soon, which is why they are stockpiling things like gold, along with other countries like China, which is what I think is really happening. Going back to the question is, will China unload a global debt bomb to create a chasm in international markets? Of course, anything's possible, and of course, they've been borrowing in record amounts. But I think it's more has to do with China actually diversifying their holdings. They've been buying gold in droves in recent months, especially when gold had dipped a few months ago, to, I believe, internationalize their currency. The yuan, also known as the renminbi, to become the new world reserve currency and to absolutely obliterate and destroy the dollar. Another reason why you, the little guy, wants to own gold and silver. You can pull a couple charts here. You can see the gold touched $1,300 an ounce here today earlier, or got very close to it, trading roughly right about $1,300 at $12.98. Silver trading at $20 an ounce. Now, silver is a great and awesome alternative to gold. Many people, these small investors, have trouble diversifying their income into gold with, a dollar per ounce price as high as $1,300 an ounce. Another great way to get involved in precious metals is to get involved with silver, which also is an excellent inflation hedge. And I would highly recommend, if you can afford gold, buy gold. But if you can't afford gold, start with silver and then buy gold. All of this is an excellent approach to protecting yourself against an inevitable dollar collapse and the internationalization of what I believe to be a different currency, which will ultimately be the yuan, or the renminbi, as it's also known, or a global basket of currencies maybe in the interim as part of that transition and the collapse of the dollar and really America as we know it. There's a reason why the federal government is running drills against Second Amendment supporters and treating citizens and civilians as the enemy right now, because they know that martial law and civil unrest is coming to the masses very soon. China's 500-ton gold gap fuels speculation that they've been stockpiling. This is something I've been following in very big detail over the past few years and the past few months especially. I believe that China is stockpiling gold right now. And this, you can see, is confirmed by some mainstream media. But of course, they're always late to the party. This has been going on for quite some time now. A 500-ton gap in China's gold consumption data is fueling talk that the central bank took advantage of weak prices last year to bulk up its holdings of the precious metal. Also, we're seeing that China's citizens buying gold. You know, they don't have a lot of avenues for investment. So the citizens themselves, and of course there's always been more of an allure of gold in the East, are buying gold. So while Americans have been selling gold over the past few months, China has been buying it, using it as an opportunity to diversify their currency, to increase their wealth and power in the world, and its own citizens have been picking up the slack and buying from America. Now, a lot of, I think, the gold market had been artificially manipulated recently, with a great portion of it just being traded in the digital markets. The gold ETF, for example, an exchange-traded fund, the largest exchange-traded fund or ETF in the market, in the world today. I think that was just a lot of really speculative investments, international investors, and hedge funds, etc., probably taking profits and driving the price of gold down. Of course, a lot of these funds and these investors and these institutional firms have been shorting gold, and at some point they're going to have to cover, just like they're going to have to cover their investments in silver. Another great article here saying yuan, confirmed by the mainstream media, now one of world's most tradable currencies. It's in the top 10. You can see us moving our way, not slowly, but aggressively towards a new world reserve currency, with the yuan, also known as renminbi, now one of the world's most tradable currencies in the top 10. Now, the United States dollar currently has position number 1, followed by the euro, but we know what complete and utter trash that currency is. The United States government and the Federal Reserve continues to debase U.S. dollars, as well as the same thing in the Eurozone, as a way to ultimately collapse our system, because there's no way out of the debt pile. There's no way out of $17 trillion plus and growing, $18 trillion in the not too distant future. The GOP and the Republicans, showing us the true whores that they are, have suspended the debt ceiling again until March. They haven't done anything about it. They've just suspended it to another day, while the dollar continues to be debased and you get rocked by inflation. Another reason that you want to buy gold and you want to buy silver. Now, you know, people, I think, falsely look at the gold and silver markets as like it's this, you know, extreme gold bug market, and that everybody's crazy that buys gold or silver. This is some of the most rudimentary and fundamental investments that you can invest in. Take it from a guy who was in finance for over 10 years and who had worked at a broker at one point. In my opinion, my humble opinion, gold should be a part of any well-diversified portfolio. And a good rule of thumb is you should have about 5 to 10% of gold or silver, precious metals, in your portfolio. It's a great hedge on inflation. It's a hedge against economic collapse. And it's something that's been around for thousands and thousands of years. It's just a no-brainer. Now, we could also argue, I could also argue you have a larger amount in your portfolio. And again, I'm not giving you advice, investment advice, because I'm no longer a financial advisor in that business. I'm just strictly giving you my opinion. But I could argue that a much greater amount of your portfolio could be in these investments. But 5 to 10% is a really good rule of thumb. So if you can't buy gold at $1,300 an ounce, at least yet, then start with silver. And, you know, create a dollar cost averaging strategy for yourself, where every month you take 10% of your income and you buy silver or you buy gold, depending on your individual situation. Please go consult a financial consultant or financial advisor to, you know, suit your individual needs. But in the meantime, what's happening in the big macro picture is not only is China taking over, but they're filling their 500-ton gold gap, which is fueling much speculation for stockpiling, which is something that I've assumed that they've been doing for years now, much throughout the 2008 financial crisis. And of course, People's Bank of China isn't really reporting what they're buying right now because they don't want to push the price up while they're stockpiling before the United States implodes, which is exactly what's happening now. Is again, Americans feel the threat of a massive storm storm wiping out power for thousands, running out of food. Again, these storms and these natural disasters are just giving us a sneak peek of what's yet to come when financial disasters hit. When, the next financial crash pales, or will make 2008 pale in comparison, make it look like a church picnic, and we have this kind of environment and shelves empty in cities, not just in Atlanta or North Carolina, but literally around the country, especially when people panic, when the dollar would likely, in a collapse scenario, first experience, and asset prices in general, on the whole, would first experience massive deflation, followed by a hyperinflationary environment as the world moves and runs, really, at hyper speed, as is the quant trading computer systems today. Out of the dollar as the reserve currency. Deflation followed by hyperinflation. We've seen this around the world time and time again throughout history. Again, no fiat currency in the history of man has ever survived long term. Ever. That's a fact. That's not an opinion. So the yuan, now one of the world's most tradable currencies. Another article here, does China plan to use gold to internationalize the yuan? And then I mentioned fears that a currency crisis at Chinese banks could trigger a global meltdown. Well, that's betting, and it's certainly anything is possible. And just like the United States, which had historically been the economic powerhouse, experienced the Great Depression, even though it became the most powerful country economically on the planet, anything that anybody's ever seen, but now has ruined ourselves. Anything's possible, but this scenario assumes that the dollar rises, that the U.S. dollar rises, that a rising dollar would hurt the loans as the runaway dollar overtook Chinese financial institutions where they were unable to service the debt and the massive amounts of debt that they've been borrowing, not just in their own currency, but in the U.S. dollar itself. I do not believe that the U.S. dollar is in a long-term growth trend. Is anyone with a brain, I think, would come to understand. The dollar is clearly debasing over the long term, bottom line, having lost 95% of its value, being the long-term trend. So this scenario, although anything is possible and anything can happen, and of course I believe China will have their own series of financial crashes. They will probably also have their Great Depression equivalent that was experienced here in the United States. Again, nothing moves in a straight line. But what is really happening, in my opinion, is China and the People's Bank of China is buying gold in droves. They are stockpiling. They are hoarding, not just their central bank, but the people in general. This is an excellent time, in my opinion, to, again, if you're not already doing it, you should have a healthy diversification across your portfolio. Gold, silver, 5 to 10% roughly is a really good tried and true estimate. You should be doing this right now. You should be buying gold. If you can't afford gold, you should be buying silver. Everybody can afford $20. Take 10% of your income each month. It's a wealth tool. It's a wealth creation tool. And it's a protection against a dollar collapse, economic calamity in the markets. And it's physical. Buy physical. Again, when the system crashes and the ETF markets no longer work, physical is going to be a lot more precious, pun intended, than anything else that's digital, that's based on an algorithm in that kind of environment. Of course, if you're interested in this kind of thing, please check out our sponsor, Gold Silver. Again, every sponsor that sponsors our program, my program, has been vetted by me, and they all fit within the guidelines of the Liberty Movement itself and what our community believes in on a whole, which is to empower you, the individual, to empower America, and to take back this country to the constitutional republic which it was founded and which has made it such a great place over the short few hundred years that we've had before they've gone and screwed it all up. Check out goldsilver.com. This is Mike Maloney's company. He's got a series of videos that are very educational called The Hidden Secrets of Money. You can of course, give them a call. Let them answer your questions. You can chat with them online as well. They'll give you the rundown, how to buy gold, how to buy silver, how to get started with these kinds of things. Here's their phone number. I highly encourage you to do it. And thank you for your support. I'm Christopher Green, hard hitting it in your face. Get this video out everywhere. Make it viral.